I don't wear a mask like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from me. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
Morning and wondering what is the latest with the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Welcome. I'm Carolyn Sawyer, and this is a special edition of the Health Wrap that we're doing this Saturday. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Carolyn, and welcome to you, our audience. Thank you for joining us. Yes, it's finally hit the nation's home, the White House, and after months of mocking masks that we use as protective measures against the coronavirus, President Donald Trump is being treated at Walter Reed Medical Center after contracting COVID. The First Lady is getting care at the White House, Carolyn, as we've heard, but you know, reactions are mixed. I mean, some people are shocked, and the journalists are reporting this shocking news, but I don't understand why. And it's you know, with all the rallies and the presidential debate, unmasked, it was a big gamble. And there are losses. I mean, several of the staff and the supporters and elected officials are now hit with this illness that has just ravaged the United States. So, and they're reporting, as we know, that President Trump has two big risk factors. When we talk about underlying conditions, he has obesity and his age being 74.
And of course, we're not surprised because for the last several months, we have been reporting on some of those risk factors. You're looking at right now a shot from 1 week ago. This was the scene in the Rose Garden at the White House ceremony where President Trump was naming his recommendation for the Supreme Court. And you can see it's packed wall to wall, people sitting not 6 feet apart, you can see. And you could probably count on two hands the number of face masks that you see. Very limited use of face masks, close proximity. This morning when I woke up, I think the count was close to about 12 different people, most of them close in the inner circle. 3 were journalists that had, in fact, been exposed as a result of being around the president and tested positive. So it's not the news that we want to hear. And there's a lot of folks who, you know, have some disappointment because we've been saying, I know we have certainly here since March, that there are just some basic things that can be done. And those basic things involve washing your hands, wearing the face mask, and staying 6 feet apart, while those in the science world work on other things that might help, such as a vaccine, such as better testing. So now today, a lot of folks are running around trying to do some contact tracing, which means that they're trying to figure out who were at some of the events, because outside of the debate that we saw Tuesday, he then had a fundraiser on Thursday where he was in the midst of individuals who were coming to hear him speak. So it's really disappointing, I think, in many respects, particularly for those who have really just been beating the drum to do the right thing, not just for you, but for your community. Someone said to me, a doctor said the other day, maybe what we should have told them was to do it for them, and it would have gotten done, right? That maybe America is one of these states and a country where if you tell them, hey, it's all about you, then maybe they would have done it. That the message was maybe not the right one to say, protect your loved ones, protect your community, be more patriotic. But that's where we are this morning as the president remains in Walter Reed.
Right. And, you know, one thing about Walter Reed, a lot of people say, well, what is Walter Reed? We hear it all the time. It's the medical center that takes care of the president, and it's located in Bethesda, Maryland. Basically, you see a lot of wounded veterans that come, the first destination in the continental U.S. When soldiers are coming back here. And this center has been treating presidents forever. We do know that inside there is also an office. He has a special suite, and there's a bedroom, there's a place for a kitchen, an intensive care unit actually in that suite. And the White House physician has a room to sleep in there as well. And only if you've been vetted, if the situation escalates, there are doctors who have to be vetted to be able to go into that special presidential suite. There's also one for the First Lady in case, you know, she ends up having to come there. But you can't just come there and say, if this escalates, you've already had to be checked out to be able to take care of the president. Their working spaces, I know he said that he's going to be working, but a lot of people are concerned about that. And that's one of the questions, is like why people always want to know about the president's health, because we transfer power in the events depending on how sick he does come. So he's getting top line care. But this is a highly revolving situation, Carolyn, and we want to know, what does this mean for us, for Americans? I mean, some people are sad, glad, mad for political and personal reasons, but then there are people who are very anxious.
Well, and there's another piece too, which really surprised me on yesterday. A number of people who don't even believe that he really has it, that you know, that this is all made up, that it's maybe designed for other ulterior motives. But there are scores of people who actually do not believe that he really has it. I said to folks yesterday all day long, you know, let's assume it's 50-50. He might not. Let's err on the side of caution and go ahead and put the mask on in the event it is true, right? But I was surprised. I mean, you can see on Facebook people posting, this is not real. This is just an October surprise. It's politics. I think there's a whole lot of people who are coming up positive for this to be politics, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I believe he has it because, you know, he has a state of fear. You know how he usually comes out boastful and everything. We weren't seeing that when he was walking, getting on Marine One, getting on that helicopter. So,
yeah, or even the video before. He cut the video talking about he was fine, or he thinks he's going to be okay. They're also trying a cocktail, not a drink cocktail, but a drug cocktail that they're having to do under what they call compassionate care. It's where it's not been approved by the FDA. It's where they're actually going to test it on him to see if it will actually work. So he is getting a cocktail that they've been testing. They just haven't done trials with large numbers of people. And so we'll have to sit back and just watch and wait. His symptoms, we've heard them all before, as he described feeling very fatigued. We've heard that before. We've heard about cough before. That was on his list of symptoms, as well as the fever. And again, you're pointing out the pre-existing conditions. Can't say that enough. He might have taken offense when he heard a few folks on the news saying that he came really close in terms of obesity, but that obesity factor is huge, and we haven't really dived into it. But the reality is, if you're carrying those extra pounds, what I'm reading and hearing from physicians is that it makes it difficult for you to breathe. Okay, it makes it difficult for you to breathe. So there are obviously lots of concerns, age being one of those as well. We've got a couple people. Monique's joining us. Monique says they just said he had a fever for 24 hours and oxygen is at 96 without any support. So those are all good news, good reports. That number, we've seen that before. We're almost going to be doctors by the time we finish Doctors on Call, right? Selena is joining us. She says, I honestly thought it was a political distraction. It is a distraction. It's a distraction to what he was doing in terms of his campaign. The campaign's at a halt. And one of those 11 or 12 people that I mentioned was his campaign manager. His campaign manager has now tested positive. One of his primary strategists has tested positive. And I know you were doing some of the contact tracing with the assistant Hope, who's close at hand.
Yeah, you know, and she's one of his most trusted advisors, and she's with him basically everywhere. So are other staffers. She actually came with him and moved to Washington. She had served as the White House communications director, and then she left in 2018, as people probably remember. Then she came back, but she was one of his daughter's friends, helped her with her fashion line. And then he told her, as she was helping with that and some other Trump ventures, but she said that in an interview that he had called into the office and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about running for president, and you're going to be my press secretary." Now, she never worked on a campaign before as an employee or a volunteer, so he must have thought a lot of her. But, you know, the word on the street is, and we know that the journalists, some kind of way they found out about Hope Hicks. And then the ball started rolling. Everybody, the word started getting out. People were getting tested. And it was more and more staff members and people that were at one of the super speaker events. That's the events that they call when there are lots and lots of people together. And some people are even saying, Carolyn, they think it started in the Rose Garden because of how many people are parading through there and how close it is there. So
absolutely, that's why they call them super spreaders.
Yes,
but they can spread all through the audience. Interesting fact came out as well that the Supreme Court nominee, apparently she had contracted COVID this summer, as well as her husband, and had self-quarantined after contracting it this summer. Now, why is that interesting? Because, you know, everybody's medical condition comes out at this point. What's interesting is in all this stuff we're reading, you are hearing that there is also now some possibility or probability that, or let's just say the doctors don't know for sure if it can come back again after you've had it the first time. So in other words, getting it one time doesn't necessarily make you immune. It could in fact come back again. We're doing a special edition of our health wrap today. Carla, we should say, we went on hiatus, right? Not that we went on vacation, no fancy vacations. We tried to get a little rest and try to regroup. And we were scheduled to come back actually on October 10th. So we're still planning to come back with season 2. But this was important enough, we felt, to come and to get out here and to share with you what we know and what we could share. And that's why this is a special health wrap for you. The President and First Lady Melania have been quarantined as a result of their COVID-19. And as we've said, the president is now at Walter Reed Hospital receiving treatment, and he says he intends to be there for the next few days. So we're continuing to follow the story, and as much as we can learn. I said to somebody yesterday, and Carla, you and I are old enough to remember, this is kind of that Rock Hudson moment. You know, you remember Rock Hudson?
Yes.
And AIDS? And Rock Hudson did for AIDS in terms of just visibility. And you and I both know that there were tons of people who were still walking around here talking about this was a hoax and it didn't exist and it wasn't real, despite the fact that we're over 200,000 people that have lost their lives. And so you certainly wish the best and hope that people recover. But the president, this happening to the president, has now literally put that spotlight on that White House in Washington, and it raises lots of questions about protocol. Why were people not wearing masks? And someone said last night, I thought it was so fitting. They hoped and prayed that the president might even come out of this with a little bit more wisdom and be a better advocate for wearing masks. He certainly had one on yesterday when he went to go get on that Marine One.
Oh, yeah. I would not be surprised if after this experience that all of a sudden we see some type of mandate. Oh, we're going to have to wear masks now. And that means the mandate comes down and we're wearing masks, which may not be a bad thing at certain times, because you know what happens is traditionally after a holiday, about 2 or 3 weeks after, we see a surge. Yeah. There's an uptick, like we're starting now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw
Memorial Day, and I don't know, I didn't hear so much in terms of Labor Day, but we certainly saw Memorial Day. But I have to tell you, so those of us who are, political junkies and watch the debate, we heard the wisecrack made at Vice President Biden in terms of wearing the mask. But I'll tell you what was even a little bit more chilling is, those good reporters who cover the White House beat, they found video where the folks who were at the Cleveland Clinic, which was the host to this event, were trying to hand out masks to the family. And they were like, no, we don't want. And you just want to, you got to be kidding me.
Well, Carolyn, that was one of the requirements actually that was set up. How they have a list of requirements. I mean, you've covered, races, and it's like, you will not do this. You can't all the requirements just went out the window because it's like, you can't talk over the time. But that was a requirement about the mask. And that's why the family and the supporters wore masks coming in. You see video of them coming in, and as soon as they got in there, they ripped them off. So I think that people, hopefully, they're going to think again, like this little piece is just a little piece of fabric that can save your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the anxiety earlier, and you're right. There is a certain level of anxiety. I was actually looking for something I saw and just read a few moments ago from someone who was talking about, we know not what tomorrow brings. And someone reminded them, we don't know what tomorrow brings, but we know who holds tomorrow, right? We all know that one from our Baptist church days. But yeah, it really, I think, people are concerned about the uncertainty. I know it was just 2 days ago that someone asked the question. They asked what happens in the transition. And the minute I woke up and heard that he had contracted COVID, I called, I texted this person. I said, exactly what was your dream? Because they were sharing that they'd had a dream and wanted to know the whole process. A lot of that process is what people are worried about too, and talking about and strategizing about. And so the question is, how do we manage that level of anxiety, which is already on top of the anxiety that we have because we have been sitting in the house for 6.5 months, going out periodically, but we've been quarantined. We've been trying to be safe because we are in a high risk group. So we've got one of our favorite psychologists with us to talk about that today. There she is.
Good morning. This is Doctors on Call, the health wrap. So we're about to talk about the hottest topic that's going on right now with Dr. Sherry Blake, our clinical psychologist from Atlanta. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're fine. We're fine. I know that when you heard the news, your wheels started turning immediately about what's going on.
Absolutely.
And other people as well.
Absolutely. You know, what's funny, I knew it had to be a matter of time. You know, you can only put people in a bubble that's so thick or so large. And with traveling and having open rallies, you know, I am not surprised. And you're talking about anxiety. It's funny because I think most of America has had anxiety since day one. And those that did not believe this to be true or thought it was just a political ploy, now their anxiety has increased. And so I think now we have everybody with anxiety now. So they're beginning to share anxiety that those of us that have lost loved ones or have been, you know, in this for the long, we have been experiencing an anxiety, a level of anxiety for a long time, but you learn to manage that anxiety. But I think now all of a sudden they said, hey, listen, what do we need to do? It's real. And it was really interesting for me to see all of his staff members with masks on as they walked to the helicopter yesterday. Because
yesterday.
Was that not amazing? So it says to me that for the first time, it has clicked in that this is real. People may die, people get sick, and we have to take it very seriously. And I think the anxiety and the realness is sinking in with a different group of Americans for the first time.
Do you think this brings to attention to people that were like, I'm not wearing this mask, that they're going to say, wait a minute, I better wear this mask now?
Absolutely. It's bringing that, or, you know, it's or it's one or the other. Some people may say it's a political ploy. It's just a distraction. It's something, you know, it's just another game, and they may not wear the mask. But for those that are closest and see the reality that not only is he going to the hospital, he has symptoms, and these symptoms, as we know, can, you know, go south very quickly, or hopefully and pray that will improve. But the reality is, for the first time, people are saying, I really need to think about this on a different level.
It's funny you talked about going south pretty quickly. They say that was one of the things that surprised him the most, is how quickly the symptoms took over his body physically. I have a question though, because what we've heard for some time is that there was literally a culture or an environment there in the White House where if you wore the face mask, you were kind of ridiculed. And I have a feeling that's not only in the White House, it's probably some other places. What can people do if people are, you know, giving you heat for trying to do the right thing?
Well, you understand that you're responsible for your health the best you can. And it doesn't matter what people are saying. you know what the real deal is. And if you believe science, you understand that this is important. This is what I need to do, protect myself, my family, and those that I love around me. But what's interesting is that when that culture of, oh, you know, if you wear a mask, it's almost as if the stigma of depression and anxiety and mental health, if you go and seek help, you're weak. I think that was the attitude towards wearing this mask. And we've seen that from the top coming down. So now all of a sudden, just like in mental health and depression and anxiety, people say, you know, this is really real. And I think that's the same thing that's happening with the mask. Oh, we really may need to put this on because this is really real and this could save my life.
I like what Monique Hill is saying. You see that, Carla? She said, now we can disperse this anxiety. So many of us have been coping and being shamed for doing so.
Absolutely.
So what can we do when we feel like, oh, we're being shamed?
Well, first thing we have to do is we treat it like we treat a bully of any other sort. You know how bullies come after you. You have to stand up and say, hey, listen, this is who I am. And you have to really confront it and continue to do what you know is right for you, because it doesn't matter what people say. We see people dying. We see people that are sick. And although people may want to ignore it, you know, you cannot ignore this. So you have to do what's in your best interest, what's in your family's best interest, and your loved ones. And so also speak up and speak out, because like any other bully, they tend to back down. And then when you get a punch, and I'll call it a punch, like, you know, when somebody comes after you as a bully and keep on, and finally you get enough and you punch back. I feel like the reality of COVID being with the president having COVID is like a punch in the face to a lot of people. And they said, oh, okay, we need to back up and we need to deal with this, because now I can no longer just laugh and get by and make fun of people and they're going to walk away.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Sherry, we're a couple months in, and we certainly have had some folks that have survived COVID. And I don't know if you or any of your colleagues are seeing the survivors. And what are you guys seeing? Is it like PTSD? What are you seeing?
Well, you know, emotionally, it's very stressful. But most of all, I think people are under the impression you get it, you get over it. And that's true for some people. But the problem is symptoms linger, different types of symptoms. So a lot of the people that I deal with, it's not just anxiety about having COVID, I can't get it out, but it's the anxiety about the symptoms that are lingering. They're still short of breath. They're still tired. They're fatigued, which means they can't go back to the level of functioning that they once. So you get increased anxiety by knowing or wondering, am I ever going to get back to how I used to be? Am I ever going to be able to do? And that increases a lot of anxiety and is very fearful.
You know, Miss Carlette just messaged us that people have to have a personal experience for them to change or believe, change behaviors or believe. And so maybe now seeing is believing. Mm-hmm.
I believe that. And it's very unfortunate that many people, and I would like to say many, but not all, must have that personal experience before they truly believe, because it's like saying that, you know, you can't relate to anybody until you've been there. And I would like to think that we can learn. I would like to think that we can learn from others without stepping in that same hole.
Well, Dr. Sherry, as always, some great advice, and we look forward to you hanging out with us in season 2 as well. But thanks for coming on today on this special edition of the Health Wrap. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Lot to process, lot to think about. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
All of us get infected. What's really a challenge is that if you have an underlying condition, asthma, heart disease, diabetes, if you're being treated for cancer, you had a recent transplant and you're being treated for your transplant, autoimmune diseases, those individuals are at higher risk for severe disease and death. And that's why I think in minority communities, we need to be very vigilant to make sure we're protecting individuals who have those underlying conditions. So it's not that we're more prone to get infected, we're more prone to get severe disease and possibly die from COVID-19 because of the underlying conditions.
Explain, because of those underlying conditions? I know we kind of talked about obesity and struggling work. Can you explain why those
Yes.
underlying conditions?
Because the virus is infecting our lungs and compromising our ability to breathe. And also our immune system is responsible for fighting the virus. So if you have a condition that either A, compromises your lungs or compromises your immune system, you're going to be less able to deal with the virus than somebody who is healthy. All of us.
Dr. Hildreth been along with us for the ride for all along. We're always happy to hear his advice. He was, again, talking about your immune system. And, you know, when I referenced the obesity earlier, that's one of those things. Diabetes, high blood pressure, all of those things go into having effect. You know, we were early on out the gate with him. When you called him and said, hey, come and talk with us, and we're doing this because we feel like we need to get this information out. We now, though, see that there's some other docs who are joining in on the party, right?
Yes, we noticed a group of doctors from the prestigious Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, which is one of the nation's foremost medical communities there. And we want to show you what they're doing in their white coats.
As doctors, we know African Americans are more likely
to acquire and die from complications of the COVID-19 virus.
Why?
Because people of color suffer from higher rates of chronic medical conditions.
Like diabetes and obesity.
High blood pressure.
Heart and kidney disease.
And asthma.
All of these lower our immune system and the ability to fight off viruses.
Being an essential worker and even using public transportation increase the risk of getting COVID-19.
But we can better protect ourselves and others from the virus. Washing your hands.
Not touching your face.
Wearing a mask in public.
Social distancing.
Eating better, exercising, getting more sleep.
And visiting a primary care provider for health checks.
Will all make a difference.
If you have questions, call the number on the screen.
And visit our website.
Let's work together to save lives
and beat this pandemic.
Love that PSA.
Yes, it's wonderful to hear the message from a whole group of physicians, and especially physicians that can identify with a lot of the underserved communities and African American communities. And a little later, and as we kick off season 2, we're going to talk to the doctor who conceived the whole project.
Absolutely. I just loved seeing it. And ironically, it's the Cleveland Clinic where they were earlier this week, right? How ironic is that, right? But the messaging, you know, there's an old saying, if you say something about 7 different times, people will get it, right? So we're going to keep saying it and keep saying it and keep saying it in hopes that people will get it. But more importantly, we want you to share this message, share with your friends. We really would like to see that more folks can get this information and know, you know, when people can confront you and say, look, take the mask off while you're wearing the mask, then if you know that information, you know clearly why you are wearing that mask. And so we feel like this information is it's the power you need. It's the power you need to struggle through out here.
Absolutely. And like you said, hearing it over and over again, we need to hear it over and over again. And you remember you're talking about Dr. Hildreth. We did several PSAs with him, and we talked about the hand washing, the social distancing. And one of the things that was just so amazing is to see what happens when you do sneeze, or if there are any droplets that come out from just even talking. And that was startling to see how this person's infects this person and infects the next person.
Absolutely. Well, we've got another message from Dr. Hildreth. We'll be right back after this break.
Hey everybody, it's Judy Gatson at WYS TV. I wear my mask to help teach my boys how to protect their grandparents, their GG, and their teachers, and to slow the spread. Mask up. Wear it, South Carolina.
Love that spot. Came across it this morning. I'm biased, I admit. Judy Gatson and I worked together at the NBC affiliate in South Carolina for a number of years, and Judy's still there. In fact, I was texting with her early this morning at about 6 a.m. I wasn't sure why she was up that early this morning, but we were trying to get her to come on today because Judy just shared with the world that she had COVID and pneumonia and was coming back from that. And she is actually hosting a debate tonight. We got a big debate here in South Carolina. We got a Senate race that everybody's watching. So she'll be hosting that, facilitating that and moderating that statewide debate tonight, and said she'll catch us in season 2. But one of the things she said to me, which I thought, it speaks to what we've been hearing and Dr. Sherry was saying, she said, we've reported about the way it beats down your body and the exhaustion. She said, it's true. But she said, I was still very unprepared for the physical toll it has taken. She said, it's also not like the flu, on the sense of knowing that when you've turned the corner, it's very up and down. Like even once you feel better, there are days when it knocks you down. And so she's still struggling with it. I, of course, reminded her that she's got to pace herself and take care of herself, as we all do, but we wish her the best. I also had another conversation this week with one of my classmates, and Judy and I know each other from Atlanta. This classmate I know from Atlanta as well, where I went to high school, and that's Derek Bottoms, the husband of the first lady. Well, I guess he's the first man, right? Mayor Bottoms' husband. Checked in with them because, as you know, they were one of the first high-profile political couples that came out and said they had COVID. And the same. One of the things he told me, he said, Carolyn, we've been back kind of in the motion for a couple of months, but when we go to the doctor, it's like the doctors are still learning what is associated with this and what symptoms and signs. And so it's not so much that you can go to the doctor and get advice. It's kind of like you're sharing information so that they can begin to have a better understanding of what is happening. And so he said, and when the information they have is from the person who just had it 2 more months earlier than you did. So it's interesting to watch those who are surviving with it. We wish them all well and good health. And we'll continue to do our part here at the Health Wrap in terms of letting people know what's going on.
Okay. Well, Carolyn, I think it's about time for us to let people go ahead and enjoy the rest of their Saturday.
And we'll be back next week. Put it on your calendar. We're kicking off big news. We haven't even told them the big news. We'll tell you next week. We got to come back. Have a great Saturday, everybody. Thank you.